The lamps were low in the third-floor accounting room the night the quiet woman who kept the family's books finally set her pen down and stopped pretending the math could be saved by another month of careful columns. Outside, the rain came soft against the tall windows. Inside, the air smelled the way it always did when she worked late old paper. Lemon oil from the long table, and the bitter coffee no one but her drank black. The junior bookkeeper who watched her from the corner desk had been raised to mind his own pages and ask no questions, but he had been with her 3 years now, and he had never seen her sit so still. She closed the leather ledger in front of her. Then she opened the small black notebook she kept locked in the bottom drawer. The one she had told him only ever held her aunt's old recipes. She turned to the last filled page, set her finger on a number, and breathed out slow. "Get my coat, Davide," she said, "and the umbrella from the stand. The good one." The boy did as he was told. He did not ask where she was going. He knew. The only door in the house she would knock on at this hour was the door at the end of the marble hallway downstairs, and the only man behind that door was the man the whole city called Boss. The bookkeeper had spent his whole life hearing his mother say that name only in church and only in a whisper. Tonight, the woman he worked for was going to set 2 ledgers in front of that man, side by side, and make him look at the difference. She did not look afraid. She looked the way she always looked. A woman in her mid-40s in a plain charcoal suit, dark hair pulled back at the nape of her neck. No rings, no perfume. Composed. The boy had heard the older clerks call her the steady hand. The cousins in the kitchen called her the boss's left ear. His own mother called her, with a kind of awe, the girl the old lady raised. That was the part the rest of the family kept polite about. 40 years ago, when she was 4 and there had been a fire at a tenement, the boss's mother had walked into the smoke and come out with a coughing child in her arms. The child had no one left. The old lady had brought her home, set her at the kitchen table, fed her bread and warm milk, and told her sons that night that this girl was a daughter of the house in everything but the surname. The boss had been a boy himself then. He had grown up with her at his elbow, learning numbers from the same old aunt who had taught him to count crates. When his mother died 10 winters ago, the old lady had pressed a small black notebook into the girl's hand and said, "Only, keep them honest for me." The girl had been keeping them honest ever since. The bookkeeper held the umbrella over her in the courtyard. She nodded her thanks, but did not speak. The lamps along the gravel path were the soft amber that the boss preferred. 2 of his men nodded at her from the colonnade and did not ask her business. They never did. She crossed the marble hall in her low, sensible heels, and when she reached the carved door of the study, she did not knock the way the cousins knocked. She knocked once, low, with the back of her knuckle, the way the old lady used to knock when she was bringing him tea. The voice inside said, "Come." The boy stayed in the hall. The door did not close all the way behind her. He told himself later he had not meant to listen. He told himself later that what he heard had been meant, somehow, to be heard. The boss was at the long desk under the green shaded lamp. His sleeves rolled once, a glass of water at his elbow. He did not look up at first. He never did when he wanted a person to feel the weight of crossing his threshold. Then he saw who it was, and he set the pen down. His face the whole city studied for clues, did the small, soft thing it did only for her. He gestured to the worn leather chair across from him, the one with the carved arms. The chair his mother used to take. "Sit," he said. She did not sit. She set the heavy ledger on his desk and laid the small black notebook beside it. She lined up the spines. She squared the corners. Then she stepped back and folded her hands in front of her. "I have brought you both sets," she said. "The one that has been on this desk for 20 years, and the one your mother asked me to keep beside it." The boss did not move for a long moment. He looked at the 2 books. He looked at her. The bookkeeper in the hall could not see his face, but he heard the chair creak as the boss leaned forward and rested his weight on his elbows. "Tell me," the boss said. She told him. She did not raise her voice. She had practiced this on no one, and was practicing it now on the only man on earth she still called brother in her own quiet head. And her voice did not crack. She walked him through the columns, the freight invoices that had come in 7% fat for 19 years. The warehouse receipts in the South Yard, rounded by a careful eighth ever since the harbor strike. The incidentals line in the construction subsidiary that had grown from a thumbnail to a fist. The three small holding companies set up the spring his father died in names that had felt like loyalty at the time, that had grown by a few 100,000 every quarter into a quiet river. She named the river's mouth. She set the unmistakable trail of it on the desk in figures any honest man could follow. "It is not the auditors," she said. "The auditors signed because the books they were given are clean. They were always clean. The skim is not in the books. The skim is in the contracts before the books. It does not come out of your pocket. It comes out of what should have come in." The boss said nothing. 20 years, she said quietly. "I started the second ledger the month your mother died. I told myself for a long time I was wrong. Then I told myself it was small enough to live with. Then I told myself I would put it on your desk when I was certain. I am certain. I have been certain for 3 years. I am sorry I waited." The boss looked up at her then. The bookkeeper, in the hall, could see only the edge of his shoulder, but he could hear the slow, careful breath the boss took in and let out. "Who?" the boss said. She did not answer at once. She closed the heavy ledger gently. She opened the small black notebook to the last page and turned it toward him. There was one name on it, written in his mother's hand 20 years ago, with the date and a small question mark she had drawn so faintly that anyone but a daughter would have missed it. The boss looked at the name. He set the heel of one hand against his forehead for a long moment. The bookkeeper heard the breath leave him, as though he had been struck low and quiet. Then the breath came back, steady, and the room held its silence the way the colonnade outside held the rain. "My oldest cousin," the boss said. "Not a question. Your oldest cousin," she said. "And the company we built in his name? That summer the harbor closed." The boss did not speak for a long time. The lamp ticked. Somewhere in the kitchens a kettle whistled and was lifted. The bookkeeper realized he was holding his breath. "You knew," the boss said finally. His voice was low and very quiet. "You knew, and you carried this by yourself, and you brought it to me alone, at night, in the rain. Your mother said keep them honest for you," she said. "I have been doing what she asked. And if I had not believed you, you would have looked at the numbers," she said simply. "Until you did." He stood up. He went to the long window and stood with his back to the room. The bookkeeper could see him then through the half-open door, the still broad shape of him, hands clasped behind his back, head bent the smallest degree. Menace. The city felt every time he entered a room, sat off his shoulders like a coat he had hung up at the door. What was left was a man. "You should have told me 10 years ago," he said. "I know. You should have told me when she gave you the book." "I was 24, she said. "I did not trust myself yet. I trusted her, and I trusted you, and I did not trust the rest of the room. I waited until I was sure I was not throwing kerosene on a wrong number. And the 3 years since you were certain." She was quiet. Then she said, "I waited because I love him too. He carried me on his shoulders in the orchard when I was 6. He taught me to whistle. I wanted there to be another answer, and there was not one. So I came tonight." The boss turned around. The bookkeeper had been in the house for 3 years and had never seen the face the boss showed her then. It was not the face the cousins saw. It was not the face the city saw. It was the face of a boy at a kitchen table, watching his mother set a 4th plate. "Sit down," he said. "Please." This time she sat. She sat in his mother's chair. She did it the way the old lady used to do it. Back straight, hands flat on the carved arms, knees together, the small composed weight of a woman who had earned the room she was in. The boss came around the desk and stood in front of her. He did not touch her. He looked at her the way a man looks at the one window in his house he had stopped seeing because it had been there his whole life. "For 20 years, he said, "I have signed papers in this room and slept like an honest man because I believed they were clean. They were clean because you were keeping them clean. While I drank coffee in the morning and made my decisions. While I buried my mother and told myself the family would hold. You were carrying the truth of this house by yourself in a drawer. You were carrying other things, she said. Not the right one. He took the small black notebook from the desk. He weighed it in his hand for a long, quiet moment, the way a man weighs something his mother once gave him. Then he turned it carefully and set it back down between them. Tomorrow, he said, we go to the lawyers together. The good ones, not the cousins' ones. You will walk them through what you walked me through. The holding companies will be dissolved. The contracts will be unwound. The money that should have come in will come in, and the money that did not should never have left. My cousin will be told tonight, by me, in this room, with the door closed. He will sit down at this desk. He will return what he can return. He will leave the family business at first light. He will keep his name and his life. He will not keep his chair. That is all the mercy the books allow him, and it is the only mercy he will get from me. She nodded. She did not flinch at the quiet finality of it. She had been waiting 20 years for that sentence. The bookkeeper, in the hall, finally let himself breathe out. The boss took the leather ledger then and set it firmly to one side of the desk, like a thing handed over. He set the small black notebook beside it, like a thing kept. Then he reached into his inside pocket and brought out a folded paper. He had been carrying it, the bookkeeper saw, for a long time. He unfolded it slowly. He turned it toward her on the green blotter. It was a deed. The boy could see it even from the hall. The long, careful script, the embossed seal, his mother's small foundation, the one she had run quietly from this house for 30 years, paying for a clinic, a nursery, 2 schools, an old men's home, a Christmas dinner for the dock workers. In every December, the harbor froze. The boy had never known what it was called. He saw the name now, set across the top of the deed in his grandmother's hand. The mother's hand. She left this to be put in your name when you were ready, the boss said. I have not been ready. Not because I doubted you, because I did not want to put one more weight on a woman who was already carrying mine. Tonight I am ready, because tonight I see what I should have seen for 20 years. The seat at this table is yours. The chair you are sitting in is yours. The foundation is yours, if you will have them. She looked at the deed. She did not weep. She did not say anything quick. She set her hand over the page the way the old lady used to set her hand over a forehead and feel for fever. Then she nodded once, and she said, I will keep them honest. He smiled. The bookkeeper had not known the man could smile that way. It made him look 10 years younger and very tired. You always have, the boss said. Tonight, I am putting your name on it. The cousin came at midnight. The bookkeeper went home before he arrived. He did not need to see what he had already heard. In the morning, the 3rd floor accounting room had a new brass plate beside its door, her name, and below it, in a smaller line, Comptroller, the mother's hand. On the long table, the leather ledger and the small black notebook sat side by side under the green lamp, both of them open, both of them in her hand. By the end of that week, the holding companies were gone. By the end of the month, the unwound contracts had begun, quietly and lawfully, to put the missing money back where it had always belonged, into the clinic's payroll, the nursery's heating bill, the small fund for the dock widows. By the end of the year, a new wing of the old men's home was rising, and a small bronze plate at the door read in 3 lines, given by the family in memory of the woman who set a 4th plate, kept by the daughter who learned at her table, open to anyone who knocks. The cousin kept his life and his house and his name. He kept none of his chairs. He came once, a year later, to the back gate and asked to see the woman in the 3rd floor room. She came down. They sat in the orchard for an hour. When the cousin left, he walked very slowly, like a man let off the weight of something he had pretended for a long time was not there. The boss watched him go from the upstairs window and did not speak. Long afterward, when the bookkeeper had children of his own and was the steady hand in the 3rd floor room himself, he would tell his eldest the story this way. The most feared man in the city kept his house honest for 20 years and did not know it. The woman his mother raised at her own table kept it honest for him. One night in the rain, she set 2 ledgers on his desk and asked him to choose between the cousin who had carried her on his shoulders and the truth his mother had asked her to keep. The boss chose the truth, the way she had known he would, the way the old lady had known he would when she pressed the small black notebook into a young woman's hand. And the most feared man in the city walked around his own desk, in the middle of a long, bad night, and set the chair at his right hand in front of the daughter his mother had given him, and asked her, please, to sit. She sat. She kept them honest for the rest of her life. And the house, every quiet night after, smelled the way it always did when she worked late old paper, lemon oil, and the bitter coffee no one but her drank black. And any man who walked through its hallways knew, without being told, that the math was clean, the books were straight, and the seat at the long table belonged to the woman who had earned it with patience, with composure, and with the quiet, unshakable dignity of a daughter finally asked, in front of God and her brother, to sit.